Okay, this is assignment 2.1.7.2, or part 2 of the motor controller project. We're going to be using a real motor controller this time to control two real motors with our Arduino. And again, just review a little bit, of course, that being able to control, one motor is great, but being able to control two motors is even better. And having all the parts like the diodes and transistors and everything kind of built into one device actually is also very good. And that's what we're going to be doing with this one. And being able to also have, the ability to control not just the motors, but also having, different size motors, different voltages, all that kind of stuff without having to depend on the Arduino is also very nice. Alright, so again, for this project, we're going to be using the L9110S motor controller and two motors. So basically, it's going to be the same kind of as our virtual circuit, except we're going to be setting up a separate power source to drive the motors, and we're also going to be, the code's going to be a little different because we don't need as much, we don't have to, with the virtual circuit, we had a lot more pins to worry about. We don't have so many pins to worry about with this one. So again, we're going to need our Arduino board, our breadboard, two DC motors, the L9110S motor controller, 16 jumper wires, and a battery holder with the batteries. Okay, so again, just to remind ourselves too about pulse width modulation. Again, pulse width modulation pins, especially on the Arduino, allow us to work with not just digital information but also analog information. So we'll be able to kind of control not just if the motor's at high speed or low, or turned off, or maximum speed versus off. We'll be able to potentially even control how fast it's going too. Okay, so we're going to be using, we have pins 3, 5, 9, or 6, 9, 10, 11 to do some of those, and so forth. All right, so this is kind of the setup. Basically, we're going to have two motors. It's actually, again, a lot simpler here, as you can see from the diagram, which I'll, make it bigger here in a second. But let's just go over how we're going to connect this together. So we're going to start by connecting the L9110S motor controller to each of the motors at the motor A and motor B connections on the motor controller. So again, I'm going to make this bigger, but basically you connect the motors to these two connectors here on the motor controller. There's an A motor and a B motor, so that kind of helps to kind of decide which one goes where. All right, next we're going to connect the pins as follows. Okay, the A-1A goes to pin 9, the A-1B goes to pin 10, the B-1A goes to pin 5, and the B-1B goes to 6. And again, I'm going to show a little diagram of that so you can kind of see it a little easier, but basically that's kind of, you can follow those along with the pin numbers and so forth on the actual motor controller too. All right, the voltage, the VCC voltage is going to go, there's a pin for that on the motor controller that's going to go to the positive, where the voltage comes in, and then we're going to connect that up to the positive channel on our breadboard, and the ground pin obviously is going to go to the negative channel on our breadboard. All right. Now again, we don't need to hook the positive channel, the 5-volt channel, up on the Arduino because we're not really powering anything this time around. We're going to use a separate power source. That's what we're going to use the battery pack for, to power our motor. So basically the Arduino just needs to be grounded, basically, kind of for the circuit to be completed. So we're just going to connect the ground on the Arduino to the ground, our negative channel on our circuit board here. All right, and again, kind of what I've already talked about, but then you're going to plug in this battery pack here, make sure the positive goes into the positive and the negative goes into the ground. And basically, yeah, we're going to just be powering both motors off of this battery pack here, but controlling it through with the Arduino, again, through the motor controller. Okay, so again, this is how you can kind of set things up to control or to add more voltage and better motors and so all that kind of stuff to using a motor controller. Okay. All right, so here's the diagram, a little bit bigger. As you can see, we have motor B here. This is motor B, so it's just connected up to these two pins on the motor controller. The other two pins is connected to motor A, which is this motor over here. So again, our A1 pin is going to be connected up to 9. Our A1 or A-1B is going to be connected up to 10. So 9 and 10 is going to be for controlling motor A. For motor B, it's going to be pins 5 and 6. So 5 is going to connect it to the A channel, and B channel is going to be connected to the 6 here. And then again, we connect the ground to the negative channel and the positive voltage to the positive. Make sure we connect up our battery pack to the positive and the negative voltage here. And then again, for Arduino, we just need to connect the ground to our negative channel, and we are set. All right, so let's talk about coding. Now again, this coding goes into your Arduino editor, your Arduino code editor, not into the virtual circuits. Okay, kind of remember that. But we're still going to comment first, code last. So again, for this sketch, we're going to be controlling a pair of DC motors with a motor controller integrated circuits, the L9110S. Now we're going to be creating 4 constant variables to represent the PWM control pins on the Arduino that we'll be using to control the motor controller. Okay. Then we'll set up the motor pin to be output inside the setup function, the void setup function. Okay, and we're going to do something pretty much the same idea here that we did last with the virtual circuit inside the loop. Basically, we're going to drive forward, we're going to drive backwards, we're going to drive to the left, we're going to drive to the right, and we're going to delay for just 1 second. Again, if that's too short a time, for you to figure out if it's actually doing, your motors are doing what they're supposed to be doing, then you can make those a little longer, but I think 1 second should be enough time. So, all right, so once we get all that in there, don't forget to kind of check your code, make sure everything's working or everything is okay before you move on to actually putting in the real code here. All right, now the difference between the L293D motor controller that we used in the virtual circuit to the L9110S basically is that we can use combinations of commands to make the motor go in the direction we want to. The good thing about the L9110S is instead of using the high and low with separate pin for speed and so forth, the L9110S combines all these commands, so we use less pins, 4 instead of 6, and achieve the same result. So here's kind of a table of how this is going to work. So again, for forward, we can basically, again, since it's a PWM pin, pulse width modulator, we can either set that as high to move forward, and then set the B pin to low. So very similar to kind of what we did with the inputs on the L293 motor controller in the virtual circuit. So we can set that to high and low, kind of again digitally. But again, if we don't want to do digital, we can actually do analog here. So we can set that from for the first for 1 to 255 in the A and 0 in the B. And then same thing for the B motor, so high and then low. So if we want to go backwards, we just swap those. So we put low then high, and low then high, or 0 and 255, or 0 and 255, or some number in between. Again, left and right is just kind of the opposite. So again, we want to put for left, we're going to make the A motor go forward and the B motor go in reverse. Okay, and then for right, we're going to do the opposite. So the A motor is going to go in reverse and the B motor is going to go forward. Okay, so again, very similar to what we did with the motor controller in our virtual circuit, but again, without so many connections and enabling and all this other kinds of stuff. Okay, so for this particular program, we're going to create some functions that actually to do some of the driving of the motors and so forth. So first of all, we're going to create a forward function, and in the forward function, after you've created that function, you're going to type in the following comments. Of course, we're going to be driving forward. And again, what we're going to do is set the A pin to high, the B pin to low for both of our motors. So for the A motor and the B motor, the A pin is going to be high, the B pin is going to be low. That'll drive both of them in the same direction. Okay. Now for the backwards function, we're going to create a new function for backwards. So we're going to type the following comments. Again, in this case, we're driving backwards, so it's kind of the opposite of the forward function here. So the A pin is low and the B pin is high for both of our motors. Okay, then we're going to create a left function, basically to drive to the left. In this case, we're going to drive the A motor forward and the B motor in reverse. So the A pin on the A motor is going to be high, B pin is going to be low. On the B motor, the A pin will be low, and the B pin on the B motor will be high. And finally, we're going to create a right function. This will be driving to the right. And again, we're just going to do exactly what we did with the left function, except the opposite. So again, the A pin on the A motor is going to be low, B pin on the A motor is going to be high, the A pin on the B motor is going to be high, and the B pin on the B motor is going to be low. All right, so let's start coding now. Oh, before we start coding, go make sure you check your comments, you test them and so forth. Make sure all the function stuff is working. You got all your curly brackets and things like that. So again, make sure you do all that first before we start coding. All right, so here I have the Arduino code editor up, and I've typed in my comments already to test those. So again, I've gone through, added the comments on all the different functions and so forth. Actually, I'll just cut up. Don't need so much space in between my functions here. So here I have my setup function, my loop function, and I've created 4 more functions for the different directions I want my motors to drive in. So I got forward, backward, left, and right. And again, I've added all the comments. So let's go ahead now and start adding some code to this. All right, so we've got to start by creating some constant integer variables at the top. We need a A1A for the A pin on the loader, or the A pin for the A motor on the motor controller, which is connected to digital, well, PWM pin 9. A1B is connected to PWM 10. B1A is connected to digital PWM pin 5, and B1B is connected to PWM pin 6. So again, I've got my connections all there and so forth, and that's the constant integer variables I'll be needing. All right, so now after setup, I'm going to set the pin modes for output on all those pins. So again, I just call each one of those pins and set the pin mode to output. So I can do that. Now to drive to do the forward, I'm going to put in the forward function. I'm going to call the forward function in my loop, and then I'm going to delay 1 second. So in front of the delay 1 second comment there, I'm going to put in delay 1000 milliseconds, which is a second. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add the backwards function, the left function, the right function, etc., and then add a delay in between each one of those two. All right, now it's time to start doing the function. So inside the forward function, after the set A1A pin to high, I'm going to write digital write A1A high, and after A1B to low, digital write A1B low. After the set B1A pin high to high, I'm going to do digital write B1A to high, and of course the last one is B1B pin to low, and say digital write B1B to low. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for all the rest of the functions, following my comments to make sure that I have the right code in there. And then we're going to just check and see to see if your motors are spinning in the right direction and so forth. Now again, the actual direction that they spin isn't too important yet. We're not actually driving, a robot or anything. But basically, they should do kind of more or less what you expect. So like again, if they should spin, your 2 motors should spin somehow in the same direction first, then backwards, then one spinning in one direction, one spinning in the other direction, and then the opposite for the for turning right, and so forth. So anyway, go ahead and check and see if you got all that, and if you do, then great. If not, troubleshoot your code and your circuit and see what you missed and potentially what happened.